Is your orchid looking like this as opposed to looking like that? You had all those beautiful buds forming on it, and it just seemed like overnight they all curled up their toes and died and fell off. It's not bad luck. In fact, your orchid is sending you a warning. In this video, we're going to be unlocking the real science behind bud blast. We'll show you exactly how to stop it so that your orchids can burst into full, flawless flowering every time. Welcome to the Nature Company, where we try and demystify the science behind orchid care so you're not left frustrated and confused. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what causes bud drop, from temperature shock to humidity drops, from gas to water stress, and a few sneaky little culprits that most growers miss. And at the end, we'll take you through step by step to know how to fix all of these problems. Now let's just move this off the table so we can get to the discussion. So what exactly is bud blast? Bud blast is when those buds die, they dehydrate, they shrivel up and fall off your plant before they actually mature and open up into full bloom. And it's almost always related to stress. So anything that's going to disrupt the plant's internal balancing system when it is starting to produce those buds, and then the buds fall off. So what are going to be the causes of this? We have 9 common causes for bud blast, but before we can even think about how we're going to overcome these, let's understand what they are. There is sudden environmental change, there's water stress, temperature extremes, low humidity, exposure to gas, we'll get to this one, it's an interesting one, transport and handling stress, nutrient and chemical stress, pests and disease, and of course, natural and genetic effects. So let's go through each and understand a little bit more about them. When it comes to sudden environmental change, there's 4 factors that we need to look at: temperature, humidity, light, and air. The temperature, what's going to affect it is things like drafts, sudden heat spikes, or evening chills. All of these can be problematic. With the humidity, low humidity. Low humidity can desiccate those delicate buds quickly. Light. Changing the lighting conditions of your plant can disrupt it and confuse it. And of course, air and airflow. Things like hot and cold drafts and also stagnant air are also going to be your orchid's worst enemy at this point. Now we can move on to water stress. So water stress can be anything from overwatering, where you're causing root rot, and that way the plant can't absorb moisture and bring it up to those buds, so they dry out and die off. Underwatering, your plant desiccates, and the first part of the plant that's going to stop getting water is your buds, and they'll fall off. And then in between it, you get inconsistent watering, where you give your plant periods of drought and then periods of plenty. And this is going to upset the balance in your plant. It's not going to know whether it's Arthur or Martha, and will cause too much stress for it to be able to maintain its blooms. Temperature extremes, cold shock. So temperatures from around 15 degrees Celsius and below, which is about 59 degrees Fahrenheit, are going to be disastrous. Also, heat stress. Temperatures from about 32 degrees Celsius, which is 90 degrees Fahrenheit and upwards, are problematic. They can stress your plant. And of course, temperature fluctuations, especially your diurnal temperature ranges, the differences between your day-night temperatures, anything above 10 degrees Celsius, which is about 18 degrees Fahrenheit, can be stressful for some of your plants. Again, for others like dendrobiums and cymbidiums, they need these sorts of temperature changes to keep their flowers stable and blooming. So you got to know which orchids you have to understand that. Low humidity. Orchids generally thrive in a 50 to 70% relative humidity range, and that's where they do their best. Those delicate buds can be vulnerable when there is low air moisture, and they can desiccate and fall off quite easily and quickly. And I'd mentioned something about gas exposure that was quite interesting. It's ethylene gas exposure. Ethylene is what a lot of plants produce naturally when it starts coming into autumn as they want to start losing their leaves. And this causes senescence. That's when the leaves fall off the plant. So what it causes is aging of the plant or the parts of the plant, and then dropping of those leaves. And it will do exactly the same for your buds. It will cause them to age too quickly and fall off your plant before they mature and open. They can also make open flowers die quickly and fall off. Where does this ethylene gas exposure come from? Things like ripening fruit, cigarette smoke, gas appliances, and car exhausts, so general pollution. And not only that, air fresheners, especially those ones that you plug into the wall and you get that nice vapor coming up that smells beautiful. They use ethylene gas to cause that vaporization, and it's going to affect your plants. And I'm sorry to say, Phalaenopsis are particularly susceptible to this ethylene gas, and they react really badly and quickly to it. And it almost goes without saying, transport and handling stress. The buds of these plants can fall off really easily, especially since most of them have been grown under a set of standardized conditions. And then these buds can abort if they are transported, repotted, or rotated too frequently, and if the environmental change happens too abruptly. Nutrient and chemical stress. Over-fertilization can be extremely detrimental to your plant, especially high salt buildups in the media. Not only that, unbalanced nutrients can also be a problem, especially during bud development. If there's too much nitrogen, it can really affect them. And chemical sprays, things like strong insecticides or even alcohol-based cleaners can cause bud drop on your plant. Pest and disease problems, things like mites, aphids, thrips, are all going to attack those buds directly and damage them. Also, fungi and bacteria can be a problem, especially things like botrytis. They're going to cause spot not only on your flowers but on your buds too, and can be fatal to them. So what are those natural and genetic factors I was talking about? Things like if your plant is weak and hasn't got enough stored energy, the first thing it's going to do is stop that flowering so that the plant itself can survive. Also, sometimes they put out flower spikes that are too big and too many buds on it that the plant itself can't support all of them, that it will then knock off some of those so that the balance of them can survive. And some orchids are sequential bloomers. Like your Psychopsis, and if they go under stress periods, you may have these buds abort, but you don't need to worry. The next set will come up, and as soon as conditions are right again, the next set of buds will open. So what are these prevention strategies so we can make sure that we get all our beautiful blooms? Firstly is avoid environmental change as much as possible. Try and keep a stable environment. That's your temperatures. You want to keep your temperature ranges in between 15 degrees Celsius, which is about 59 degrees Fahrenheit, to around that 32 degrees Celsius mark, which is 90 degrees Fahrenheit. And just make sure you've got nice stable temperatures, especially during that budding and flowering period. Try and avoid moving your plants around too much at this point. They've got used to the position that they are in, let them finish flowering, and then move them. If you want open flowers for inside the house, try and wait until the flowers open. Then you've got less chance of those buds falling off before they actually do even open. And then you want to perfect your watering routine. You want to water your orchid just as that media starts to dry out. Generally, you want to keep it that it's just almost moist and then give it a good watering again. So you are going to be watching those roots carefully. Silvery grey roots means it's dry and it could do with a drink. Dark green roots means it's fully hydrated and you don't need to water. Also, make sure that you've got excellent drainage, that water is running away quickly, and that you've got good air movement, not only around your plant, but through that media as well. Also, consider misting and having evaporation or humidity trays. And then maintain the humidity around your plants. Fast drops in humidity, as we said, are disastrous for those buds. They can dry out overnight like that. So either using those humidity trays or a humidifier. And what you can also do is group your plants together. That helps produce almost a humidity dome where they're all providing humidity for each other. And always ensure that you've got good airflow, because damp, stagnant air is always going to cause problems. Light management is then going to be important, ensuring you always have bright, indirect light for your plant. Don't go moving it off to a darker environment because you think it's going to be better for the buds. It needs stable light conditions at this point. And if you are using grow lights, please remember to keep your grow lights to 12 to 14 hours in a stable environment, so that you're not reducing the amount of light your plant is getting at this point. And then, of course, avoid ethylene exposure. So keep it away from those fruit bowls. Don't put it anywhere near your gas appliances or those gas heaters. And those air fresheners, keep it well away from those. Don't think you're hiding your air freshener behind your plant and it's the orchid then that's giving the beautiful scent. It's going to cause those blooms to fall off quickly. And also, when transporting your plant, don't put it into the boot thinking, I'll take it out when I get home, because it's going to be exposed to high amounts of those car exhausts and that pollution that can then cause those buds to fall off almost as soon as you get home. And one of the best ways, again, to ensure ethylene exposure is kept to a minimum is by ensuring good airflow and ventilation, and gentle handling of your orchid. So while those buds are forming, don't go rotating, repotting, moving your orchid anywhere. Let it carry on doing what it does best where it is. If you do have to move it, then do your best to keep it in conditions that are almost identical to the conditions that you took it from. And the staple of orchid care, balanced feeding. One of the easiest ways to manage this is by feeding weekly. By that I mean feeding every week at low concentrations. So you basically want to half or even quarter the recommended dosage of your feed and feed that to your plant every week. Also, that comes with flushing your plant at least once a month. This is to make sure you flush out any of those excess nutrients. And using a balanced fertilizer can help you make sure you're not giving the plant too much of one nutrient and not enough of another. And if you need any deeper insights into fertilization or into pests that we're going to be getting into now, please remember to check that Buy Me a Coffee link in the description box down below. Ed has posted up a lot of orchid-related content that should be your go-to resource for any of your orchid-related questions. And now for those pests and diseases. How do we keep those under control? One of the best ways to do it is by constant inspection. Inspect underneath the buds, underneath the leaves, and do it as regularly as possible. Also, by catching it early, you're going to help avoid any problems. And remember, if you do find insect attacks, then use an insecticidal soap or a horticultural soap or even a neem oil. These are going to help you avoid any of those problems that you may get from any of those stronger chemical substances. And thank you for watching. If you found any of this information helpful, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and that notification bell, bing bong, to be notified of all our upcoming content so you don't miss out on a thing. Help us grow as we help your orchids grow.